Hello there, my friend. So, we got Patreon sponsored review, and I've actually got a couple of them this month, so thank you for that. That's a first. So, Mr. Robot. Now, what I was requested to do was to cover the first two episodes of Mr. Robot, which is a show that I have heard of, had a general familiarity with. I knew that it's the thing most people knew Rami Malek from before Bohemian Rhapsody. I knew it had Christian Slater. I knew it was kind of about hacking. I had a couple of friends who watched it who said it was pretty good. I've had people in the comment sections ask me if I watch it, but I had never gotten around to it. And so I have now seen the first two episodes of Mr. Robot. And I see why people like it. Or at the very least, I see why it hooked people in. There's a lot that is intriguing about it in terms of the overall narrative of it and Elliot as a lead character. So, boy, where do we start? Because I have no idea if people watching this are the folks who already know the show and are curious about my take, or folks who haven't checked out the show and are trying to figure out whether or not they want to do that. So, pretty much all of this is told from Elliot's perspective, and that is something that I would expect and hope that further on down the line of the show becomes more directly impactful. And by that, what I mean is he's narrating the thing, and we know we are getting very much his perspective on things because of one specific detail that starts happening early on. Now, he works for a computer software security, cyber security company. And their biggest client is this mega, huge corporation that basically has his fingers in everything called E-Corp. But he doesn't think of them as E-Corp. He thinks of them as Evil Corp. And he mentions early on that he kind of does a mental filter for every reference of E-Corp to read as Evil Corp. It's, it's like doing I forget what they are, like a wicket thing or whatever they are, to like every instance of this word replace it with this kind of thing. And what that means, after we find out that he does this, every single time another character is talking about this company, we, the audience, always hear them say Evil Corp, even though we know there's no way these other people are calling it Evil Corp. But that's what we hear, because we're getting it all filtered through Elliot's perspective. And as I said, it would be my hope that that would be used to really kind of mess with the audience a bit, because Elliot is not a particularly reliable narrator. He has, his words were that he's schizo. Whether he's sort of using that as a general sort of, I'm kind of crazy term, or whether he actually means he's schizophrenic, I'm not sure. I think he might be, because it's mentioned in his therapy session, delusions as well, and part of schizophrenia is often both visual and auditory hallucinations. So, and he's also extremely, he's paranoid, which schizophrenics tend to be. Even if he's not schizophrenic, he's definitely got some severe social anxiety and a lot of issues. And so he's unreliable for that reason. In addition to that, he's also got a morphine habit, which I actually don't love. Like, I know part of it might be to connect him to certain characters, and that might pay off more down the road. But I feel like there was no need to introduce the drug problem, or at least have it start to become a problem, because by the second episode, it's clear that he is not as in control of this drug habit as he thinks he is. And that seems really early to be introducing that as an element, because we've already got a lot of reasons to doubt Elliot's state of mind and thought process. And I don't know what adding drug addiction in on top of that actually accomplishes. It strikes me as the kind of thing you throw out like halfway through a season as an additional curveball. Kind of a, oh, remember that drug habit that he thought he had under control and you thought, well, maybe he does too. Guess what? He doesn't. Instead, sort of introducing right off the bat, no, he has this habit and isn't really in control of it. It makes me go, okay, well, what does that accomplish? Because I've got a ton of reasons to already doubt everything that's coming out of his mouth. So again, it might lead to certain story possibilities later on. I can't know that. But in terms of narrative groundwork, it seemed unnecessary. Rami Malek does a really good job playing this part because he has to be a little creepy and a little unsettling and a little weird. And, well, first of all, Rami Malek looks a little weird, so that, all respect to the guy, but he does. So that helps. And then, additionally, he does a really good job of showing the character's finer points, kind of his intensity, his focus, his analytical mind, and things like that. I have mixed feelings at this point, 2 episodes in, about sort of what he's doing and what the group he's getting involved in are doing. Because it just kind of frustrates me when we get sort of this idealized version of something that in real life is never this pretty. And by that I mean like the whole kind of hacktivist thing. Like, he starts out with a confrontation with a guy who's a pedophile. And that confrontation is very much the kind of thing that we idealize these sort of hacktivist vigilantes would do, but that very, 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 very rarely, if ever, is the reality of it. And I always get that kind of glamorization can annoy me. Yet, at the same time, Elliot is not a particularly glamorous character, which I think takes the curse off that whole issue. Maybe not completely, but decently. Because, like, if he was doing what he was doing and was the coolest guy in the room, then, yeah, I would probably hate this. But because he's not, and not in, like, a stereotypical computer hackers are awkward dorks way, which I also would have hated, but, like, in a way that feels like a fully rounded character, that does help balance that a little bit. And, that's one of those things that I kind of, if I'm going to watch this, I kind of have to roll with because it's part of the core baseline premise. And, it can drive me nuts when people lob criticisms at something that is much more about, not being able to even work with the concept so that whether or not the execution was any good becomes irrelevant. So, I'm trying to be as fair as I can as far as all that goes. Christian Slater plays actually the titular Mr. Robot. He's a hacker and sort of the leader of this group that seems prepared to do a lot more extreme things than Elliot has ever really kind of done in his own dealings with this kind of work and these sorts of causes. And Christian Slater is pretty good for this. Christian Slater is an actor who, I don't know, I've never disliked. He's always just kind of been there. And he's kind of a little bit douchey by nature. But that works for a character like this because this guy's a little bit unsettling and a little bit of a douche. And it works, especially in terms of like that inherent smugness that Slater tends to have gives you that air of, again, keeping this guy from feeling like, oh, well, this is the coolest guy in the room, we're supposed to root for him, and kind of making you go, I don't know if we should have anything to do with this guy, which, again, I think helps the narrative quite a bit. It's a very well shot show as well. It looks really good. And yeah, it is intriguing as it lays out Elliot as a character, as it lays out his conflicts, his sort of mental traps and tricks. Oh, you know what is the one thing that, like, I feel the safest in genuinely criticizing? It's that his worst assumptions about people are always turning out to be right. And by that I mean, I'm not sure he could even stop if he tried. He just tends to hack and, online sort of stalk people who have any connection to his life at all. So, like, a girl he's known forever is dating this guy, and so he digs through his stuff, and oh, look at that. He's a jerk who cheats, and he's kind of dumb, and he likes these awful movies and bad music, and and then when he goes to his therapist, he looks into the guy that she's dating, and he's married but hasn't told her that, so he's just cheating on his wife, and he never really loved her. And I don't know, there's something, like, especially when you've introduced a character that you kind of establish as being a little bit paranoid, there's something kind of frustrating for me about having a character like that, having their paranoia and their cynicism validated on a constant basis. Because I think it's, like, if I were to, I don't know why I keep thinking of this character, but he's been popping in my head the entire time I've been sitting down talking about this. I think about somebody like House from the show of the same name, who was also a jerk. And he was the coolest guy in the room, but he was also so abrasive that you got why nobody liked him. Because he was one of those characters that you go, you're fun to watch, I would hate to ever meet you. But oftentimes, some of the most intriguing, if not episodes, at the least interactions that he would have on that show were with people who defied his expectations. Because his expectations were always, everybody's self-serving, everybody's awful, everybody lies. So on the occasions where those philosophies didn't pan out, and he was challenged, it usually led to some of the most interesting moments. And, I mean, 2 episodes in, I don't know if, like, Elliot's gonna always be right about these kinds of characters or whatnot, but it was the kind of thing that I kept hoping would turn out that, like, for instance, his friend's boyfriend wasn't actually into, this lame mainstream stuff, and he wasn't actually cheating on her, but that Elliot was projecting all of this onto him, and he believed it to be true. Like, I kept waiting for something like that, and it never happened, which concerned me a little bit, because as intriguing a character as Elliot is, if he is operating in a world populated almost entirely by one-dimensional stock characters, that's not going to hold up for the long haul. So I want sort of the revelation that he's putting people in boxes, but he's not right by doing that. So, yeah, I think we'll kind of wrap it up there. I don't know if I'm gonna continue to watch it. What I'll say is, if I had watched this at the time that it aired, I probably would have stuck with it. Now it's a harder call because, just logistically, there's just time. I don't have that much of it free. I was only able really to squeeze this in because it was sponsored for me to do so, which I actually do appreciate. I'm glad I saw this. But like I said, I don't know if I'll catch up with it. And I'm also not sure I'm in the mood for this kind of show right now. But if I had watched this at the time it started airing originally, I probably would have stuck with it. I see where it's intriguing, and the relationship and the dynamic between Slater and Malik's characters is really interesting, and I really kind of want to see how that develops and evolves. So, assuming that I don't just never get back to it, like if I can find time for like an episode a week, and I can stick with it, maybe I can work through getting caught up on this. But I can definitely see the promise in this setup. Really good job on the main acting roles, and it looks really good. So, yeah, I get why people like it. And if you haven't checked it out, and if anything that I've talked about sounds intriguing to you at all, I would encourage you to check it out. Give it a look in. So, Mr. Robot, first 2 episodes. Have you seen them? What did you think about them? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. A whole bunch of stuff down there as well, because there's buttons and there's links. There's one to my Patreon. There's links to merch. There's my P.O. box. There's other stuff besides that. Go check it all out. Or if you don't, that's okay too. Because at the end of the day, you are the council. I'm just running the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned.